If you want to know what's going on in Rockingham County government, check out Rockingham County 411. If you're interested in county governmental programs, projects, and services, don't miss Rockingham County 411. Public Information Officer Mabel Scott will share important, crucial news you can use with Rockingham County 411.
Rockingham County 411, you're in a good place, and today we're going to be talking with our tax administrator, Mark McClintock. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We want to know, what is a revaluation or a reappraisal?
A reappraisal or reevaluation is the same thing. It's the process of resetting the assessed value of land and improvements to 100% of their market value by recognizing the changes in real estate that takes place through the years. Our last reappraisal in 2019 included commercial, industrial, and residential property, but we know the market has changed somewhat. Reappraisal does not include personal property like machinery, equipment, motor vehicles, boats, and personal property mobile homes. Since 1920, North Carolina counties have had the responsibility to assess and collect property tax. So North Carolina state law requires that each of the 100 counties reappraise real property at least every 8 years. For the January 1 date of the year of the reappraisal, which ours was 2019, the law states your property should be close to the market value as of that date. But from that moment on, the real estate market values change, but we do not adjust the tax value, except if you have destruction, construction, like a remodel, or an error that we find, until the next reappraisal. So your tax value is never to the minute value.
Okay, wow. So when is our next reappraisal, and how do we decide when to do a reappraisal? Do we just do them every 8 years? Is that the way that operates?
Well, each year the North Carolina Department of Revenue studies the ratio of tax values to market prices. We do a random sampling and we report the percentage that the tax values are to the market value.
Okay.
So basically, if your tax value was set at $90,000 in 2019, but your house sells for $100,000 today, we don't adjust that value to the $100,000, but we track that unless possibly there's a remodel. So when you divide that out, the tax value is 90% of the market value. And that's the ratio that we report to the state. And we do a random sampling of those to the state each year. Now, the state law dictates that if the sales fall below 85%, so if the tax values are 85% of the overall market, then it's dictated that we have to do a reevaluation within 3 years of that time. Right now, our sales ratios are 91.52% based on last year's sales. Now, state law also says that public service companies, this is Duke Power, the railroads, transportation, water utilities, those companies are assessed by the state. But in the 4th year of your reappraisal, if those values, or if our sales ratio values fall below 90%, and our 4th year will be 2023, if we fall below 90%, those values get equalized the amount of that reduction.
Okay.
So we can lose value. So this is very important for us to track, and that's why we don't do them every 8 years. We look at what the market's doing.
Okay. Why are we going to do another reappraisal in 2024?
We have some concerns with staying on an 8-year cycle. Our next reappraisal we were looking at was going to be 2027.
Okay. Okay.
But for 2024, the reason we're advancing it is in 2020, the residential real estate market has changed a lot, even during the pandemic. There's been a radical shift in the availability of property and the cost of construction. Our concerns also is we could be below 85% even next year, since we're already at 91%. And that could trigger a mandatory reappraisal in 2025. Another concern is our public service companies we talked about earlier. They are $910 million of our $7.8 million tax base. That is 12% of the overall value in our county. So if we lose even 10% of a public service company, we will lose over $600,000. If our sales ratios are below 80%, $1.2 million for 20%. So in the year 2023, the fourth year of our reappraisal, if sales continue the way they are, the current trend, and we drop below the 90%, we lose cash money, cash revenue of $1.2 million. So we're not only losing tax revenues with the low sales ratios, but if the sales prices were to continue to climb, then it could be a sticker shock with the change in value over 8 years.
So what if the economy and the market change?
That is another concern, and it's something that none of us know. I have a crystal ball, but it lies to me all the time. The unknowns in our real estate market is we don't know what our ratio will be in the next few years. But it takes several years to plan a reevaluation, 2 or 3 years to perform one. We can only look at what is happening now and try to project what we expect to happen in the future, but we have to plan this well in advance. What will the general economic trends be? What's going to be the effect on the market of COVID, which is still here? The supply chains that have been affected during the pandemic, as we talked about the increase in the prices of construction materials. Personal property. We have a really big business coming in with Purina, which will increase our values somewhat when they finish construction in personal property. But we don't know what that will be or when we will start realizing it. What will be the growth variations in other parts of the county? So all of this was a concern as we approached the commissioners to look at this, to plan this next reappraisal, is what is to the most benefit to the citizens of Rockingham County, and try to factor in what we could, but we have to base our decision for the future on what we see today.
Will property increase in value everywhere and at the same percentage?
That is the most asked question during a reappraisal. What was your percentage of change? In our last reappraisal, it was a minimal change in the overall real estate values. But there is not one exact percent of change. All property valuations are subject to changes or corrections that we observe when we do our review. Not all valuations will increase. Some could decrease. Some could stay the same. But a reason that might happen is if someone is not maintaining their property, it could decrease. If someone has remodeled and we did not know that and they did not list it, which they're required to do by law, and we find that theirs could go up other than the general changes in the real estate market which could affect it. The county is grouped into over 500 zones we call neighborhoods. Now, the reason we can't say the exact percentage of change of all property is all neighborhoods act differently. I'm in a very rural neighborhood. I don't have city water or sewer or cable. The city neighborhood acts totally different. A neighborhood at a golf course could be different also. A neighborhood up in our northwest part of the county near the mountains acts differently from a neighborhood on the border close to Greensboro. that could feed off their market some. So we look at all of these zones and we compare your property to similar properties in a similar neighborhood. And we look for sales and the market trends for that neighborhood. We don't compare my property to the golf course property or the city property or the Greensboro area property. And that is really important because part of the reappraisal is to establish uniformity and equity. So the different zones or neighborhoods will act differently through different periods of reappraisals. For every piece of property, we also have a property record card. It has the tax rates, the land rates, and all the information that we know about your property. And it includes the general condition of your property, which could change. So our appraisers will review the property in the county, comparing the data on record to the data observed at the property. They'll make changes when they see those are necessary and either add or subtract buildings that we have been built or have been destructed and no one told us about. Other appraisal staff, they will track and analyze sales data and look at all the property sold since the last reappraisal. We don't look at what happened prior to 2019, but what is happening right now. We analyze the data for the rental markets, the building cost, which are much higher than they were in 2019.
Yes.
And from this analysis, we build our valuation tables. And you can always review the property card based on your last billing is available at our website at myrockinghamcountynCtax.com. You can see your bill and you can see your property based on the current reappraisal and our last billing.
If my value goes up, will my taxes go up the same percentage?
Not necessarily. And this part can be a little bit confusing. If values may increase, if the current market trends remain as we see, a lot of values could increase. The amount of taxes you pay may not go up proportionately to the value that it could increase. Once again, we're projecting out to 2024. I don't know what that market will be. But you could see the tax rate go down. The county and municipalities can adopt what's called a revenue neutral tax rate. They basically look at how much money we need to operate. We look at our budget this year, what we passed. So we look at the value that we tax, and we base the tax rate on what we need to operate. If we adopt a revenue neutral, for example, if you have a property that was valued at $100,000 at our last 2019 reappraisal, your county-only tax bill would be $695. It's a 69.5 per $100 tax rate.
Okay.
To get that same $695, though, let's say, and this is an example, we don't know what property will do. If your property increased to $125,000 at the next reappraisal, to get $695, the county could adopt a rate of 55.6 cents. So revenue neutral means 55.6 cents gives the same amount of revenue to the county as 69.5 cents, but your property may be higher. So, as I said, different properties will act differently. We don't know the market or the condition that your property will be at that time. So when we do the uniformity, when we do the equity and we level everything out, there will only be one date that value is good, and that's January 1, 2024. The new assessments will not be effective till 2024. And they will remain unchanged to the next reappraisal. Between the reappraisals, we do not adjust for the economy. So we're still pretending today, when we assess something, that it's 2019.
Okay.
It's not today's value.
Okay.
And we have to remember there's no perfect value for real estate. Whether you're a tax appraiser or a fee appraiser, it's an opinion of value. There's not a magic book. It all depends on the market.
What are we to think about all the news that we're hearing all the time regarding the real estate market? And you've touched on some of this, and costs are going up. I mean, just to even get a deck done now, it's extra money because of the cost of wood.
The framing packages per the contractors has went up quite a bit. The real estate market is always local. And the real estate market is driven by many factors. And as we talked about earlier, the location in the county can affect the price.
Okay.
We have to remember that other areas of the country are going to act totally different from us. So even if you see that real estate in North Carolina is up X percent, that could be information about the whole state. But when you break it down county for county, or even neighborhood by neighborhood, like our 500 zones, it acts differently.
Okay.
So the appraised value that we determine in 2024 on January 1 should be close to what you would expect your market value to be, whether it's higher or lower than it is right now from the 2019 reappraisal.
Who will do the next reappraisal?
The 2024 real property appraisal will be conducted by a private contractor. We received 5 quotes, and we put out a request for proposals across the state, and even had companies from out of state send proposals. We then reviewed all of the proposals from the contractors. We looked at those very carefully. We checked their references, we checked the services and the price to make a final selection of 2 companies, of which the commissioners, in June 7th, I believe it was, we passed the resolution, or we had the meeting to look at the resolution to advance the reevaluation, and we chose a contractor. We're opting to do a full list and measure, which is the highest quality reappraisal. In this instance, Piner Appraisal, the owner is Gary Piner. He has worked in county government in a tax office. He has retired tax administrators who work for him. His staff is highly trained. He has a good reputation. He's finishing up an appraisal right now in Bladen County. He contracted to perform our reappraisal for $1,195,000. This is a fully contracted one. He will come in and research the market data along with our appraisers who will be giving him information. They will visit all the properties that are accessible. We will take pictures of the main structures, which could be of use to other areas of the county, such as 911. We will knock on the doors of the main structures and leave door hangers with ways to contact us if the taxpayer's not home. That's so we can find out if our information is correct. We will measure all the buildings, add buildings that need to be added, change condition, grade, or whatever needs to be corrected on the property card. They will enter the data into the tax department computers, prepare and present the schedule of values, edit, review the neighborhoods. They will be here to help handle appeals, and the quality of their work will be guaranteed. We even hold some of that contract price out till the end to make sure it's a good product before they receive the full payment. We'll be making an effort to contact all the taxpayers, and this will give us a baseline so that we can be uniform throughout our municipalities and throughout the entire county and the different areas of the county. We also will have information on our website, and we will even have a way now of being able to call the different zones and neighborhoods prior to the appraisers visiting. So if we have your phone number, we can give you a heads up that we're going to have people in that neighborhood. They'll be wearing the vest, their cars will be marked, they'll have IDs. So it is a private contractor, but we feel this is the best for the county.
And you all are going to be very, very busy.
Yes, and very involved in the process of the tax department, even though we're contracting most of the work.
So why are we using people from outside of Rockingham County to help to perform our reappraisal?
The uncertainty of the economy since 2003 changed our reappraisal cycle. Prior to that, we had done 4-year reappraisals, which are the suggested method by the North Carolina Department of Revenue. With the uncertainty of the economy, we went from 4 to 8 years for 2003 to 2011, 2011 to 2019. But we all know about the recession and the issues we had during those years. For 1 or 2 years, we didn't even see a lot of new construction. Value stayed very flat. The market was not good. But it is hard to staff for an 8-year reappraisal. We have had people retire out of the tax office from when we did the 4-year reappraisal, and we didn't replace them because it takes 2 to 3 years to do a reappraisal. You have an 8-year period, you can't really staff for that. So in looking at this and in looking at the availability of trained people, not knowing what the next reappraisal will be and not knowing what our market will be or when that will be after 2024, we're contracting this out so that it would be very hard for us to staff up and train, but then what if we go back to the 8-year cycle?
Yeah.
So regardless of who performs the reappraisal, the Rockingham County Tax Assessor is responsible for ensuring the quality of that reappraisal. The tax department is responsible for making sure this company does it the right way. And the reappraisal company is going to utilize our knowledge base and the information that we have. We'll assist them in understanding our local markets, and we'll provide them the data. It's important to know we will be actively engaged in it. Our last reappraisal was partially contracted, but it was very hard on staff. It was very labor intensive. So this will give us a very good list and measure, and it will help us out immensely with a good quality product to give us a baseline as we go forward.
So, what are the main things you want to tell our viewers today?
The reappraisal is still a few years off. These values are not going to take effect till 2024. But we're going to make sure everyone knows information prior to this. There's a lot more to a reappraisal than raising values. In a reappraisal, we look at each neighborhood, the class of property in that neighborhood, commercial, residential. We use the sales for that neighborhood, we analyze it to make sure that we have uniformity and equity on the assessments. Certain types of property could go down. Certain types can go up higher than others. No one wants to pay more taxes. But the idea is the state law states that we should be at 100% market value on the effective date of our reappraisal. And that's our goal. The tax rates are set by the municipalities, the fire districts, and the commissioners. So that tax rate may not stay the same, and in all likelihood will not. It's important to know the property proportion that a value could raise, and like I say, we're projecting out, isn't necessarily how much more taxes someone could pay or less taxes. We're going to study that market until then, and what our market is in 2024, that's the baseline we want to establish. There will be plenty of time to appeal values that people do not agree with. We will send out notices of change of values, and our website will be even friendlier with our appeal modules and data verification tools as we approach 2024.
And more information will be disseminated on your website. Give us your website one more time.
It's myrockingham.nctax.com, and we will do more programs like this. We're always available to speak in the community as we get closer to explain this. And we did a pretty good campaign last time.
We
Our
did.
last reevaluation went very smoothly.
Good. We want to thank our tax administrator, Mark McClintock. As you could tell through this interview, he is a very knowledgeable man, and he will be available to talk to you, he and his team, here at the Rockingham County Governmental Center. You're in a good place in Rockingham County.